watch. Go to watch.
Do you know there is an ongoing war right here in America? Are you aware that U.S. citizens have been classified as enemies of the state since 1933? Have you recognized that our entire government is really a vast network of interlocking corporations engaged in commerce? Look up Title 28, Section 3002. Tune in to In Defense of Humanity on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Find out what's really going on and learn how to protect yourself and your family as flesh and blood men and women living in a corporate reality.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It's Monday, July 9th, 2018, start of a brand new week. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about today. There's a lot going on. It's a very, very busy news day, obviously. And the phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, ready to answer the phone, put you on the air with your comments and questions. So let's just get right on into it. Obviously, the big news right now is everybody's waiting for Donald Trump to announce his nominee for the Supreme Court to replace departing Justice Kennedy. And Orrin Hatch may have accidentally sort of tipped the situation because in an op-ed for the Deseret News, Hatch used a female pronoun to describe Trump's pick. And that one word sort of gives it away that the nominee is going to be Judge Amy Barrett. And the Democrats, the liberals, are in an absolute panic. She's very conservative. She's very constitutionalist. She's young, which means she's going to be on that court for a very, very, very long time. And the Democrats are so scared. They're actually talking about being willing to lose Senate seats in the midterms this November just to stop her nomination, because they understand that attempting to block another of Trump's nominee is not going to look very good to the voters. The optics on it are very, very bad. And of course, the big issue they're fanning up is Roe versus Wade and a woman's so-called right to an abortion. And over at Planned Parenthood, the executive vice president for Planned Parenthood Action Fund said the organization is calling for a special personal liberty standard for President Donald Trump's Supreme Court nominee to be judged by when he or she comes before the Senate for confirmation. And what they're talking about, is, of course, is the idea that what a woman does with her own body and anything that happens to be in it is up to her to choose, and the husband has nothing to say about it, the boyfriend has nothing to say about it. It's entirely up to the woman to choose, and all of it is based on this idea that a fetus is not a separate human being until the moment it is born, which is very debatable. And you come into questions of viability and the rest of it, and it's going to be a contentious issue. And as I've said before, for me, this is a complex issue, and part of the reason is because in my first marriage, my first wife got an abortion, which was not something that I agreed with, because I wanted to be a daddy. That was my life's ambition at that point. So I didn't get to be a daddy, and I went back to being Peter Pan. I understand there are circumstances where abortion is necessary and must be available. Cases of incest, rape, obvious case of severely malformed child revealed on the ultrasound. Where I have a problem with it is this idea that a fetus isn't human. until the mother says it is. And the number of women who will go on out and engage in sexual activity, but they don't take responsibility for the birth control. And I know a lot of birth control medications are harmful, intrauterine devices, and that is a separate complex issue on its own. But women want to go on out and not think of themselves as that kind of girl, and then they have one too many, and they wind up becoming pregnant. Now, there is that morning after pill that's out there, but apparently some women just aren't paying attention, or they're just going to roll the dice and use abortion as retroactive birth control. And I don't agree with that. If you don't want to have kids, that's fine. But be proactive in not allowing it to happen when you engage in such activity. Don't just go on out and have a wild time, and when you get caught, just say, oh, well, we'll just go over to Planned Parenthood, and they'll suck it out, cut it up, and sell it to various laboratories and things. I have a real problem with that. So Planned Parenthood is already on the warpath. And the Democrats are out there, even before Trump's actual announcement, they're out there saying they're going to fight tooth and nail to prevent his nominee from being confirmed. Well, what are they going to do? Just block Supreme Court nominees until Trump appoints a liberal? I don't see that happening. Are they going to try and stall the Supreme Court process all the way to 2020 in the hope that a liberal president will get in? It's getting a little weird out there. There's been another case of liberals harassing conservatives and Trump supporters, and apparently at a Richmond bookstore, there was this unhinged liberal harassing Steve Bannon. And it got so bad they had to call the police. So this is the face of today's Democratic Party. And again, the optics are not very good on it. Pardon me, over in New York, in Suffolk County, police have arrested Martin Astroff. He's 75 years old, and apparently he's been arrested for threatening to kill a GOP lawmaker's volunteer and Trump supporters in general, and apparently at one point tried to run over a campaign volunteer. This all happened last Friday. Now, unfortunately, what we're dealing with here, and we've talked about this before, the Stanley Milgram experiment. This was an experiment done back in the 50s as a way of trying to explain how so many otherwise decent, good Germans just went along with the Nazis. And what this experiment determined is that there is some part of human nature where no matter how good you are and how moral you are, you will go along and commit vile, evil, violent, painful acts as long as you're convinced somebody in authority over you says it's okay. And we're seeing that happen with the liberals. You've had Maxine Waters up there telling people, go on out and harass them, and it's actually happening. We're seeing the Milgram experiment reenacted right before our very eyes. And as of the last check over at Breitbart, they're keeping a rap sheet. There are now 254 acts of media-approved violence and harassment against Trump supporters. Now, we're going to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network, and we're going to take a phone call from Laura in Michigan. Aloha, Laurel. Welcome to, Laura, rather. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I got two things. Number one, you are a daddy. That baby was conceived, and that little baby will be up in heaven waiting for you.
Well, I appreciate that thought.
Child is alive. Huh?
I said I appreciate that thought.
Child is alive. Yeah. Just think about that. You are a daddy, and that baby's there for you. Number two, what I wanted to talk about is abortion is more than just choice to these women. You got to understand that this is sacrificing innocent blood to their god, Moloch or Lucifer. It's like a religion with them. And this is sacrificing the most innocent blood that there is. Okay? The Israeli flag's got the star. They say it's the Star of David. That's actually the Star of Moloch. And Moloch was a god that they had these statues. It had his arms outstretched, and people would put their babies on it, and the baby would slide down into the statue's gut where there was a fire and kill the baby.
That's
So,
pretty
yeah, I
grisly.
remember these people. I know, I hate to say it, but that's the way it is. This is truth. I only give out the truth. So you have to
here-
realize
let me
they're
give
going
you
to
a
whip
different
up these
perspective.
women into a frenzy.
Let me give you a
They think that
Laura, let me give you a different perspective. And I actually did a video on this, and I
Okay.
think it's time I probably got it back out again, because obviously this whole Planned Parenthood issue is going to heat up again. But what if a woman, gets knocked up on a date and decides to have an abortion? What if that fetus she's aborting was the human being who was going to discover finally a real cure for cancer, or a new clean energy source, or some other wonderful advancement to our society? And they're not just getting rid of the fetuses, they are potentially sabotaging our future.
right.
Okay?
I worked at a crisis pregnancy center. I would tell you about it. People find all these excuses. There was a girl, she was raped by a black man and wanted to get an abortion. She came to the crisis pregnancy, and they said, come on, please have your baby. Don't kill your baby. We'll find an adoption for it. And sure enough, there was this couple that couldn't have children, and they adopted this baby, and they were just as happy as clams, and I'm sure that baby had a wonderful life.
Well, that's a
But
happy
if you kill
outcome.
it, it doesn't have
I mean,
life
that's
at
a
all.
happy outcome. But, part of Planned Parenthood's agenda is population reduction, specifically aimed at a specific race. And a lot of the liberals who are supporting Planned Parenthood don't understand that originally Planned Parenthood's founder targeted the organization on a specific ethnic group.
Right, she did.
Yep.
You're right. I know
Yep.
that.
Okay?
But there can be good outcomes, And I just don't believe a baby, just because a woman's raped, that the baby should be exterminated. Why should he pay for the father's sins?
Yeah, that's
That's how I
another way
look
to
at
put
it.
it. It all comes to that question of, when do you think that fetus becomes a human being? When can it feel pain? And that, of course, is a gray area. It's really ultimately unknowable. But the people who see life as precious say, it's going to be a potential human being. It's not there yet. It's like planting a seed in the backyard, and you're going to have some carrots or green onions or something like that. They're not there
Right,
yet,
right.
but it's going to be.
Right.
On the other side of the argument, it's just a blob of protoplasm. And I think it's time I
But
dig out some of the
right now-
graphics and videos I did during the last
Yeah.
go around with Planned Parenthood.
Before women, before the sonograms, and they could see inside see the baby. They couldn't get away with that blob of flesh anymore, or whatever, blob of cells,
Yep.
Because now people can see that it's a baby,
Yep.
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 I just really feel strongly about this.
No, I
And,
can tell. I can tell.
I'm really hoping that
I have
things
strong feelings
here-
about it too, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to walk a compromise line, acknowledging there are times when it is necessary. I just don't like it being used as retroactive birth control by women who don't want to take responsibility for their own sexuality.
I'd like to encourage people to work at crisis pregnancy centers or give money to them, because they save a lot of babies. They provide not only getting the mother to keep the baby, but they'll provide clothes, money, whatever they need so they'll keep that baby. They will do anything for that mother. So any
Well-
mother can go to any of those
Yep.
crisis pregnancy centers.
See, that's
And get help.
something else I don't like about Planned Parenthood. They never talk about parenthood. They don't even talk about planning. They're pushing the abortion agenda just as hard as they can.
Right. Okay, thanks, Mike, for letting me spout out my feelings about this.
All right, well, thanks an awful lot for the phone call, and we're going to let you go. Get on back here to the news. Now, as you know, there's this movement underway, Walk Away. And it has spread like wildfire, and it started with this gay hairdresser who put out this wonderful video about why liberalism had failed for him personally, and apparently a lot of other people who used to be considered reliable constituencies of the liberals, they're walking away. And Democrats are panicking, and they're trying to derail it by saying, oh, this is all the Russian bots. Nobody's really leaving the Democratic Party. It's all just Russian bots out there with these messages saying, I've had it with the liberals. I mean, talk about scraping the bottom of the barrel. If all else fails, blame the Russian bots. Now, as you know, there's been yet another scandal coming out of the Justice Department where apparently the Justice Department set up meetings with reporters regarding Paul Manafort. And apparently this Justice Department prosecutors held this meeting with 4 Associated Press reporters last year and basically leaked information to them. And Manafort's attorneys have found 2 memos written by FBI agents who attended the meeting and documented their version of what transpired. And Manafort's legal term is saying this is confirmation. Journalists were given inside information about the investigation in violation of Justice Department policies and legal prohibitions on disclosure of grand jury secrets. So that one's still going around, and we're still seeing the back and forth in front of Congress, where we've got a few good people who are trying to get the truth out about what's going on, but they're up against that deep state. Now, interestingly enough, in his recent hearing before Congress, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein confirmed he's running the Department of Justice. And Jeff Sessions, he's basically out there making statements about immigration and a couple of other non-controversial cases. But Rosenstein says he's running the place, and that is not his job. Trump really needs to get on his presidential brass knuckles and get to work, or he's going to be a one-term president. Now, Devin Nunes is calling for a public deposition-style Russia probe hearings. And they've got a list of 42 people that they want to interview in public, and saying, really, was there actually any evidence of Trump colluding with Russia, or was this an orchestrated effort by the liberals working with the FBI and Department of Justice to frame the president and many people involved to dig up dirt to start this investigation? And yes, obviously that's what it is. They're out to get Donald Trump. And there may be a reason. Now, I have been saying over the last few months that it felt to me like Hillary was getting ready to run in 2020. And it was on Fox News today. It's in the Daily Mail that basically talk is emerging. Hillary Clinton is planning to run again in 2020. She's ramped up her public presence and her fundraising appeals in recent weeks. She's out there telling her supporters that her super PAC is working against Donald Trump. And she stayed on top of her supporters' inbox, events of the day, mass mailing. She's keeping the network alive. So I hate to say I told you so, but I did tell you so. So now, what are the ramifications? This may explain why the deep state is still trying to get rid of Donald Trump, even though for the most part, he has given them almost everything that they've wanted. They want him out of the way for 2020. So Hillary will be able to run against people she could just steamroller over. And this also explains why the liberals are still out there pushing for that open borders situation and just pouring the illegal immigrants into this country, because they're going to form a major part of her voting base. They did back in 2016. So this is the hub around which so many of these recent events seems to be rotating. The public attacks on Trump supporters, it's a campaign of terror. They want to make people scared to vote for Donald Trump in 2020. That's what it's coming down to. I was really hoping we had seen the last of her, but like a vampire, she has risen from the grave. And I mean, if Fox News is reporting it, if the Daily Mail's reporting it, then yeah, that's the buzz inside the political circles. Hillary is going to try again in 2020. That makes me double plus unhappy, or double plus ungood. Turning over to the war reports, there's a lot going on. The Syrian army has isolated militants in Daraa city, and they're starting to turn over their weapons in exchange for an evacuation agreement. And there's a video that we linked to whatreallyhappened.com where Syria has put on display all the weapons they've captured from these U.S.-backed terrorists. And it's a lot of weapons, a lot of your money being spent. We'll be back after these few words.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, the panic is on. Can't get no way, can't draw no pay. Unemployment gets...
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're going to take a phone call from Pat in Texas. Aloha, Pat. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hillary. Well, when you said Hillary, my blood pressure went up. But I wanted to tell you that she is not just going after her supporters. She hacked my email. And I used to spend 2 hours a day trying to take off all the stuff that she put on there. And what it was people were calling, asking for money, and they were calling me by a name that only one of my friends used, who also had AOL. And I think there's a connection because she knows who we are. There's no doubt about that.
Oh yeah, she's got this huge database to work from. In fact, at the end of the 2016 election, supposedly the Democratic National Committee offered to buy it or a copy of it from her. But yeah, Hillary's people, they've got everybody's email address. I get solicitation emails from Democrats all the time, which I throw in the bid bucket, except for those from Tulsi Gabbard.
They don't call you by a name. Only you and one more person would know, except the postman. He has sent me a letter in that name.
Well, nobody knows where this data originates, but yeah, they're data mining, and they may have just found your friend using that name and said, okay, that's the name we associate with this email address.
Well, doesn't that need to be investigated? Because I don't think she has a right to do that.
Well, there's a lot of abuse of privacy going on right now, and none of it's getting investigated. But I'll tell you, if she runs in 2020, and if, heaven forbid, she wins, all of our privacy will be gone. You know, the word that we have from the people she works with is she's intensely paranoid. And I mean, she was spying on her own top campaign workers in 2016. That's how intense it got. She hacked into their computers. And I don't mean just junk email. I'm talking about actually going into their computers and spying on what they were doing.
Well, you know, they've come and get Nixon for all these kind of things. So I don't think she would have time to ever trust anybody. She wouldn't get anything done. You know, if she made it every promise under the sun that all the communists and socialists want, she wouldn't get anything done for still worrying about what they're going to do to her. And she needs to worry, but she needs to get right with God. I'm telling you, it's pitiful. Because you don't come against God. Really, you don't. And she does. Man, I got all her books. If you want to read what she's like, read Big Sister is Watching You. She actually did run everything when Bill was there. She put in the whole cabinet. They're all lesbians except one wasn't. Now, you can remember Joycelyn Elders or whatever her name was, who had the condom tree at Christmas. Oh, come on.
I remember reading about that one. Nobody ever got a photo of it that I'm aware of. I remember that shortly after Bill Clinton won his election, there was a bit of an upset where apparently a Secret Service officer inadvertently walked into a bedroom and found Hillary and another lady. And so all that stuff was going on.
The back door was revolving for women like it was for JFK and women.
Yep.
Really.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
All right. Well, Pat, thanks an awful lot for the phone call. We're coming up on another commercial break, and I'm going to have to let you go. Okay. According to Syrian state media, there was another attack by Israel, and Syria is saying not only did their air defenses thwart the missile strike, they actually hit the Israeli plane, and it damaged it. No report of a crash, no report of the pilot ejecting. Probably made it back to Israel, but still, that's got to be freaking Israel out right now. Syria is proving to be a lot tougher than they thought. So, do you remember back, a while ago, where Donald Trump hauled off and launched a massive missile attack against Syria over a supposed chemical weapon attack in Douma, Syria? Well, the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons has been in there examining everything, and they just published a report saying there's nothing there. There's no traces of any nerve agent whatsoever. Now, remember, when this first happened at Duma, the doctors at the hospital, where the white helmets went on in and doused people with water and tried to make it look like it was a chemical weapons attack, the doctors at the hospital said, no, it was dust inhalation from a building that had been hit with a conventional bomb, and people were having difficulty breathing. And once again, in the photos, nobody's wearing protective clothing. And so now we have the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons coming on out and confirming, once again, we were lied to. We were lied to about this so-called chemical weapons attack. Now, the important question here is, was Donald Trump lied to by his subordinates to get him to launch the strike, or was he part of the lie itself? We got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, keep it today.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds, up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just scratch yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far 5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job in one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're going to take a phone call now from Dustin in New Jersey. Dustin, aloha. Welcome back to the show. What's on your mind today?
would that condom tree be really a rubber tree, Mike?
Good one. Good one.
Yeah, hey, Mike, Hillary, she can run again, but she's got a lot of hurdles to go through, because not only what she did to Bernie Sanders, but remember, Ed Schultz, I just want to say rip to Ed Schultz, because I liked Ed Schultz. And he did a commentary about, remember her slogan? It was what? Forward together, right?
Something like that.
I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, but remember, she left everybody at the altar at the Jacob Javits Center, right? Like, and John Podesta had to come out. Remember?
Yep.
She left all those people hanging there, but her slogan was "Forward Together."
Well, they
So
weren't moving
that tells
forward,
you-
so I guess she figured she was off the hook. But yeah, that was a very disgraceful performance on her. But on the other hand, she was convinced she had it in the bag, that she had cheated her way to the White House. And she didn't even have a concession speech prepared. She was that sure of what was going on. And of course, remember later on, apparently she actually physically attacked John Podesta and had to be pulled off him by some of the other campaign workers. And then she went away for a few days, and when she finally resurfaced, you could tell on her face that she'd been on a bender.
That's how arrogant she is, and all these people are, Mike, though. She just uses all those people to get what she wants. And she's got plenty of money, so she just wants power. You know, that's all she wants, and that's what most of these people, the men and women, want, because they have money.
Well,
they
they
don't need
always
any
want
more
more money. They always want more money. That's what money junkiism is all about. And getting into positions of power allows you to grab more money more quickly. But as far as Hillary possibly running in 2020, she's not going to leave it up to the voters. Again, I think this is the reason why they're still trying to flood this country with the illegal immigrants to get them all registered to vote. I think it's why they're still trying to get rid of Donald Trump. She doesn't want to run against him again. She wants to do what Richard Nixon did in his reelection, which was to basically get rid of anybody who might actually be a real threat and run against people that he could steamroll over, which ultimately was George McGovern. And Richard Nixon, despite the still growing at that time Watergate scandal, his reelection was by the largest margin in U.S. history. So Hillary is not planning on being gentle. And Donald Trump, he's got to do something about making sure non-citizens can't vote. And there is, by the way, a federal law that says non-citizens cannot vote in federal elections. So we've got to go back and reestablish voter ID laws, and we've got to clean up that election system, and Trump has dropped the ball on that, on both of those.
What about debt, clearing the debt out of people with college debt? Because Trump's a fascist, but he did clear my tuition up, so I'll vote for Trump, even though he's a fascist. So, people always look at the money issue over, well, he's a fascist today, but maybe he won't tomorrow. He cleared my bills up for my college. He can do something like that and peel away some of the non-extremist, college kids. But, Mike, I like Trump. Like I said, I voted for him, and I lean more towards Democrats on some issues, but but what killed it for me was the Syria thing. Not the first strike, but not only the first strike, but the second strike, because he didn't have to do it. He chose to do it.
He didn't. And my perception, and of course I've never met the man, and I'm not ever likely to, but my perception from where I sit is he's actually proving to be a very weak leader. We keep hearing that he's easy to manipulate, that he is very susceptible to flattery. And of course, we know he may be getting bad information from his own subordinates, which is why I was asking if Trump was lied to by his own subordinates about the so-called chemical attack in Duma, or was he aware that it was a lie at the time he ordered the missile launch? Because knowing the answer to that question will tell us a very great deal about Trump's real mindset.
But you're fired. But you're fired. You're fired. He's a TV show guy, but you're fired.
Yes.
Yeah, the guy's weak. I mean, come on, man. I mean, if he's firing everybody on TV, he ain't firing Pompeo and Bolton and all these guys, you know, and hiring people out of the swamp. He's still bringing swamp people in. You know, until that comes, it's not going to get any better.
No, it isn't.
You know, and Mike, I just want to mention real quick. Remember on May they showed at the Russia May 9th parade the Kinzhal on the MiG-31.
Yes.
First time. Well, they have a report out now that their strategic bomber, not the White Swan, the Tu-160, but the Tu-22 can carry up to 4. They're saying Kinzhals. Now that's a lot of firepower for that thing.
That is a lot of firepower.
On one plane. And and then also real quick, Mike, I just want to mention on the video you were talking about in Syria. Did you see all the TOW missiles launchers that they confiscated?
Yes.
There was like 7 or 8 of them. Yeah,
more than
and
that.
They had
more than that.
And they also had, like, you can see U.S. mortar shells and all this other stuff. And you know what? All the pine boxes they come in, or the boxes, they look brand new. Brand new. You know, and I'd love to see the serial numbers on those TOW missiles if they have the serial numbers on them. But that can be tracked back to where, you know, what lot number and stuff, right? I mean,
well, in theory, yes. But usually when you're involved in covert warfare, you provide weapons that don't have serial numbers. And again, going all the way back to Arkansas in the mid-1980s under then Governor Bill Clinton, that whole gun and drug running operation involved companies in Arkansas who were fabricating lower receivers for military-style weapons that did not have the required serial numbers on them. And they bought all the other parts as spare parts, and they assembled these weapons, and they sent them on down to the Contras.
I remember they had confiscated the Syrian army, all those they found machines that manufacture chlorine gas. They were made in Michigan. It was, like it said, made in Michigan right on the thing, you know.
Yep.
So, I mean, how sad, you know, like, yeah, that's how the stuff gets. And remember the report where the guy told his truck, and it wound up being used in Syria by the terrorists that had like a 50 caliber on the back of a guy.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah. I always kept wondering,
how's that getting over there?
Yeah, I mean, is there like a car theft ring being run in this country by CIA to get untraceable vehicles for these jihadis?
And also all the Toyota trucks that are made for the special forces.
Just a whole string of brand new Toyota trucks. A lot of money got spent in Syria trying to topple Assad. Anyway, listen, Dustin, thank you for the phone call. We're going to let you go here and get on back to the news. Now, as you know, Israel is making a big stink over the fact that Iran has a presence in Syria, and Israel is out there demanding that Iran at least pull back to the north of Syria, which I think Assad is probably going to do to take the tensions down. But Iran is saying they want to continue their presence in Syria primarily to counter Israel. They're not entirely sure if Israel is going to just stay on their side of that buffer zone around the Golan, or if Israel has greater ambitions for territory into Syria itself. Based on Israel's history, it's a valid concern. Well, as you know, Trump is getting ready to head on over to the NATO summit, and then his meeting with Putin in Helsinki. And a lot of people are very unhappy about that, because the last few presidential administrations have been following the agenda of demonizing Russia, demonizing Russia, demonizing Russia. It all goes back to the time when Putin took over control of Russia's central bank. It's still privately owned. He didn't take it away from the owners, but he just said the government is going to manage this currency for the benefit of the nation and its people. And was right at that time where Putin went from being a big buddy to everybody around the world to the top of the does not get a Christmas card list. And so hate for Russia has almost become its own industry now. And a lot of people are just concerned that Trump and Putin might actually strike an agreement to de-escalate tensions. Because Trump has said several times he wants to improve relations with Russia. And of course, you know that if he does, the Democrats are going to be screaming, this proves it, they were colluding, they were colluding all along, this proves it, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, the U.S. envoy to NATO is claiming Russia is trying to flip Turkey and other allies to its side. So we're already back to a bipolar world of us, the good guys, and those evil Russians. And so U.S. NATO Ambassador Kay Bailey Hutchinson basically came on out saying that Russia is trying to flip these countries into their sphere of influence. Well, I don't think so. I think it's more a case of countries getting fed up with how they are treated by the United States and the West in general, and saying we're actually going to do better being on the other side. So it's not that they're being drawn away by Russia, they're being driven away by U.S. hegemonic domination. Now, a French shipping company, CMA CGM, one of the world's largest cargo shipping companies, has bowed to U.S. pressure and says it will stop doing business with Iran. They don't want to become embroiled in U.S. sanctions against the nation. And so they've announced that they're going to end their service for Iran. Chinese companies are hesitating a little bit. They're still trying to figure out which side of this they want to come down on. Meanwhile, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has come on out. Apparently, they're working behind the scenes to preserve the Iran deal, and major European countries are looking to continue the deal with Iran. And France, Germany, and Great Britain have agreed to maintain trade with Tehran without going through the U.S. dollar, which means the U.S. sanctions cannot be enforced. Now, the Trump administration is already telling these countries he'll hit them with sanctions if they don't go along with his desire for war in Iran. But again, I think a lot of these other countries, they're just tired of all of this. We've had 18 going on 19 years of the U.S. trying to conquer the world, and I'm sick and tired of it. The majority of Americans are sick and tired of it if they're not part of the military-industrial complex. And I think these other countries are starting to realize that the U.S. isn't quite as powerful as it once was, especially with the rise of parallel electronic funds transfer systems and parallel currencies. Now, Netanyahu is trying to mount a campaign in Europe to get Europe to block support for Palestine. And it's a charm offensive. But right now, it seems like Europe is actually becoming a hub for a lot of this. And Iran has hit out at what they call a psychological war, targeting its ties with Europe, after reports that Iranian assets in Germany had been frozen ahead of a U.S. deadline to reimpose sanctions on the Islamic Republic. All right, we're going to take a phone call now. Francis in North Carolina. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha to you both.
Aloha.
I have two quick things for you. One, I'll point out one simple aspect, and then I have a bone to pick with you, young man. The simple part first. One, the aspect of abortion or clearing oneself of an unwanted pregnancy, depending on what stage it is or whatever have you, blah, 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 is a multifaceted aspect like a pickle in a barrel. It is so many sides to it, it's ridiculous. As to how it's approached, being approached, and so forth ad nauseum. And it's absurd, especially given that whether or not the girl was willing or unwilling, and depending on whether or not she was dating someone or just a one-night stand, or she has a husband in the picture or not. So it depends on who you talk to, what the thoughts are, and so forth. It's ridiculous. as the scenario the gal is having to deal with. The question I would have is where was her parents or guardians in the picture or out of the picture when this whole thing started to start with? What guidance did she have to start with to help her prevent something from happening or possibly avoiding a situation to start with, to begin with? Now, aside from that, the bone I have to pick with you is this. You mentioned about that if Miss Hillary happens to get into office and all that, our privacy is going to be shot that where. Well, I have a big problem with that. What in the world ever makes you think we have privacy now electronically, my dear boy?
Well, I'm just saying it's going to be much worse. In theory, there are some restrictions on it, but it will be much worse. They'll be driving by our homes in vans with all kinds of sensors peeking into our homes.
Like they don't do that now? I mean, you could have one of those Spectrum or Time Warner vans going by, or electric company vans going by and zapping your house now as is to see what your electrical intake was or your water intake was. They're doing that now as is. They say tell me they're going to be zapping a house to see X-ray rays or something and see holes in the household.
Yeah, the technology is already being developed. What I'm saying is that under a Hillary presidency, all restrictions on the surveillance of Americans would be gone. And as bad as it is right now, it would be a lot worse. Anyway, listen, Francis, I'm going to have to let you go. We got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be back after these few words.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
Hey gang, Patrick Slattery here with an important message that is pertinent to anyone who shops for groceries, eats food, or just has an inquisitive mind like myself. What I'm about to introduce you to is a segment of our food culture that has been kept so low profile to the American public that virtually no one is aware of how dominant it is on our refrigerator and cupboard shelves. What I'm talking about is the kosher certification industry and a new app, Koshertified, that delivers a comprehensive education on all aspects regarding this little-known practice. After reviewing this app, I found that it is useful for practically anyone who purchases food, regardless of their religious faith or identity. Its database of products not kosher certified is a win-win convenience for all food-conscious people. So why not check out the kosherquestion.com or click on the link at nationalbugle.com and see how modifying your grocery shopping with the Koshertified app can make a huge difference for your future.
My name is Don Wiskin, and at 42 years old, I suffered a massive heart attack, lost 35% of my heart to damaged tissue, and was supposed to spend the rest of my life on disability. What did I do? I took Extendivite, a garlic and cayenne mix of 7 herbs which rebuilt my heart and gave me back my life. For over 17 years now, I have made this formula available to you so you don't have to suffer the same thing I did. clean your blocked arteries, and strengthen your heart and boost your natural immune system. I'm 60 years old now, and I still work every day. To get your Extendivite, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822, or visit heartdrop.com. Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid.
Extend your life with Extendovite. We will not go down in the night without a fight. You can burn up our mosques and our homes and our schools, but our spirit will never die. We will not go down in Gaza tonight. Women.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. Now, apparently there's been an attack on a security checkpoint in Saudi Arabia's Qasim. 2 were killed, and apparently it's just part of the ongoing conflict between Saudi Arabia and Yemen. And of course, the attackers are being described as terrorists, as opposed to what they really are, which is people trying to regain control of their own country. So, getting on back to Russia, as you know, the U.S. has hit Russia with all kinds of sanctions. And they were imposed in March of this year against several Russian entities and businessmen over the alleged meddling in the 2016 presidential election, accusations that still haven't been backed up by any evidence, and a long ongoing probe by Robert Mueller. But we don't need no proof. We're going to go ahead and sanction. Well, U.S. Senator Ron Johnson visited Russia and basically came back saying, the sanctions don't seem to be working. He did an interview with the Washington Examiner, and he said, you'd be hard-pressed to say that sanctions against Russia are really working all that well. And that may be good news for some of these other countries that are being hit with sanctions, that there are ways to get around them. Now, over at North Korea, Mike Pompeo went over to North Korea for his 3rd visit to Pyongyang. He was under the gun to deliver some concrete results, and when the meetings were over, he came on out and made the usual diplomatic statement that progress had been made, blah, 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 blah. North Korea, on the other hand, rather than going along with the normal non-committal statement, came on out and accused the United States of making gangster-like demands on denuclearization, and said that the U.S. attitude at the meeting was extremely troubling. Now, Pompeo has denied that, and he's getting defensive. He's out there saying, I was there. I know what took place. We made progress. We did all kinds of good things. So, according to this article in Russia Today, Senator Lindsey Graham is out there saying that China is behind North Korea's condemnation of the U.S. talks. It was all China's fault. You know, we're in a fight with China. No, Lindsey, you may be in a fight with China. I don't have an issue with them at all. And you don't get to speak for me. I don't even live in your state. But what it really all comes down to, and there was this article over in the Atlantic, is there are 2 different conversations going on. And as I mentioned before, what appears to be coming on down is that North Korea's attitude is, we'll take a step toward denuclearization, you start reducing sanctions, we'll take another step, you reduce more sanctions. And the U.S. side is complete denuclearization, and then afterwards maybe we'll do something nice for you. So they're not going to get together on this. All right, we have to take a break for station identification, and we will be right back.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield Tactical Bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Sweden is now calling for Israel to lift the siege of Gaza and calling on the rest of the world to join in. And the Swedish foreign minister basically came on out and said that Israel has to lift the siege it imposes on Gaza, open the border crossings, and secure the arrival of medical and food assistance. Unfortunately, ever since the Great March of Return started back in March, Israel's been tightening the screws. And Israeli snipers have killed 136 Palestinians and wounded more than 15,000 others very seriously because they're using those butterfly bullets. And the victims include children and medical and aid workers. And apparently Israel's latest tactic, they're shooting at the actual ambulances, which are parked on standby to take people for medical treatment. And so now they're having to park the ambulances out of sniper rifle range, which means that the medical aid workers have to carry the wounded a very long distance, making themselves target as well. Israel is targeting press workers. And all the Palestinians want is what the United Nations and Israel promised them: the right to return to their homes they were driven from in 1948. That's it. That's all they want. Now, as you know, Jared Kushner, on behalf of Donald Trump, is trying to come up with a peace deal, which has already been denounced as totally one-sided in favor of Israel. And it prompted this article in the original antiwar.com called The Trump-Kushner Delusion on Palestine. And it says that from all appearances, it looks like Trump and his Palestine-Israel fixers think they can buy a peaceful and permanent settlement of the 70-year conflict by getting Arab governments to pressure the Palestinians into forgetting the politicians' talking point. You know, things like independence from the routine abuses, indignities of colonial oppression, and focusing instead on what really matters: roads, jobs, and money. So in Trump land, everyone and everything, including the longing for justice, has a price. And that's a very, very dangerous attitude, especially because even if there is some kind of an agreement between Israel and Palestine, Israel won't stick with it, because Israel does not want peace with Palestine. They want Palestine. They want it all. They were never happy with this idea that they would have to share this land with the Palestinians. And ever since 1948, it's been nonstop demonization of the Palestinians, framing them for terrorist attacks, buying off the world's press to make Israel look like they're the innocent victim and the Palestinians are the deadly terrorists. And so now, apparently, the Israeli parliament is pushing a bill that would allow Jewish citizens of Israel to purchase occupied lands in the West Bank. Now, those occupied lands, it's Palestinian land. But it's been co-opted by the illegal settlements. The settlers are building on stolen Palestinian land. This bill would allow those settlements to start selling parcels of that land to other Jewish citizens of Israel. It's land theft, plain and simple. Now, as you know, there's been an increase in obvious provocations by Israel toward Palestine. There have been these settler raids on the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Certainly the firing at unarmed protesters along the Gaza border. The lifting of the ban for members of the Knesset to visit the Temple Mount, and already one of them has. These are all designed to inflame and enrage the Palestinians. Netanyahu is looking for an excuse to launch yet another war into Gaza. And Hamas appears to think it's imminent because they've increased their training, thinking that there's going to be another attack by Israel, which there will be. There always is. Up in Afghanistan, a U.S. service member has been killed, 2 others wounded, and it's being called an insider attack, where they think it was somebody supposedly allied with the U.S. forces who did it. So that's concerning. All right, so let's talk about the economic news, because there's a lot going on. Right now, we're seeing a lot of money flowing out of U.S. equity funds. In fact, last month in June, saw the most cash since 2008 taken out of U.S. equity funds. Now, today, they had a really good day on the stock markets. The Dow was up over 300. Everybody's going, yeehaw, yeehaw. And when I saw it reported on Fox News, they were saying it's because fears of the trade war are easing. And I don't think so, because, as you know, last Friday, the United States hit China with $34 billion in tariffs. China responded with similar tariffs. Now, if it stopped there, it might be survivable. But Trump is already talking about hitting China with an additional $500 billion in tariffs. $500 billion. That would cover pretty much everything China exports to the U.S. in a typical year. And the Chinese are saying that Trump has started the biggest trade war in economic history, and they're pledging to fight for as long as it takes. This could cause a lot of damage. All right, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates rejoining our network. Now, China, their stock market isn't doing as well as the U.S. They seem to be in a cycle of panic selling, which apparently there was a market-wide margin call. And I don't know why any stock market allows margin calls. Well, I do know, because they sell more stock, they get more commissions. And in a market that's upwardly mobile, yeah, it can work. But when the market corrects, people who've got those margins, they're in trouble. That's what really caused the economic devastation of the American people back in 1929. They were being encouraged to invest in the stock market, and they were people who really didn't know the stock market, and they were encouraged to invest on margin, which they did. And then when the stock market fell and the margin calls went on out saying, you owe us all this money, that is what really plunged the nation into the not so great as the coming one depression. Now, as another sign of the growing tensions between China and the U.S., which I'm sure Lindsey Graham is happy about, a Chinese refiner is halting purchases of oil from the United States and is saying they may purchase Iran oil instead. Now, this is a good thing, because if Iran is selling oil to China and not bothered by the sanctions, then Iran has got more of a reason to stay in the Iran nuclear deal. Okay, so we've been talking about cost benefit regarding higher education. And I saw an interesting chart today showing that blue collar job salaries and wages are actually going up much faster than white collar jobs. And the reality is that college graduate salaries are barely keeping pace with inflation. And yet we still have people saying we've got to bring in more white-collar visa workers from other countries. Well, what about all these American college graduates who are just getting by, just keeping up with inflation, who still have their student loans to pay off? What's going on there? Everybody's thinking about their own immediate profit, and nobody is really taking care of the country as a whole. That's what's missing from our current governance. Looking at the overall, looking at the long term, seeing what's good for the entire country, balancing the greed of the corporations on one side, the good of the general public. That's all gone away. We're not a capitalist nation anymore. We've gone hardcore fascism. All the money to the already wealthy, and we've reached a point of wealth inequality where we don't qualify as first world anymore. In fact, on a purely wealth inequality issue, we're third world now, where the entire system supports the ultra rich and everybody else just lives in squalor and decay and decline. Now, a little bit of good news, at least for those of you who were opposed to Obamacare. Trump has halted billions of dollars in payments to health insurers after the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services announced it was freezing payments to insurers that cover sicker patients, saying a federal court ruling ties its hands. There was a federal court case on this, and obviously the health insurers who lobbied to get the Affordable Care Act, which was anything but affordable, they're wringing their hands and they're sending out their lobbyists and they're saying, no, 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 you've got to keep giving us more money. Unbridled greed in our society here. A little bit of good news, though. Apparently, over in Illinois, there's the city, Granite City, and apparently they had a steel mill that is still in working order, and it's being reactivated. 800 new jobs, plus domestically produced steel, free of the steel tariffs. Now, if we can bring back that manufacturing and that steel processing, this is going to work out. Now, as tensions rise in the Middle East, as you know, there's talk of oil supply disruption. People are not able to buy oil from Iran, or soon will not be able to. OPEC is not increasing production because they want their profits to go up. And analysts at Stanford C. Bernstein and Company are saying that a supply shortfall is lurking that could drive oil up over $150 a barrel. And that will hit us all at the gas pump. And for anything that involves petroleum products in its manufacture or transport. So let's get on over to Great Britain, because the fur is flying over there. Theresa May came back from Chequers with this new deal to the European Union involving the soft Brexit plan. It's a total betrayal of the British voters. She wants to maintain close ties with Brussels, economic ties. She wants a Brexit in name only. And it has triggered a crisis within the British government because Brexit ministers Davis, Baker, and Braverman quit. They just quit, and they've gone public saying that Theresa May is not serious about giving the British people the Brexit they want. Now, Jacob Rees-Mogg cheers on David Davis' resignation and vows he will vote down the Chequers plan for the soft exit from the EU. There's not a lot of support for this deal. There is no deal. Theresa May has crafted a Brexit. It's Brexit light. It looks like Brexit. It tastes like Brexit, but it's not really Brexit. And finally, just 30 minutes before Theresa May was due to run the gauntlet in the Commons about the compromise package, Boris Johnson quit. So Theresa May's allies are concerned a bid to oust her will come almost immediately. And members of parliament are already demanding a no confidence vote because of the way she sold out the Brexit deal. And Boris Johnson called the deal that Theresa came up with a big poo. Not exactly the word that he used, but you get the context here. Andrea Jenkins is saying she's 100% ready to trigger a leadership contest. So we may see things changing dramatically in Great Britain. We may see the rise of more populism there. Now, as you know, Trump is going to be in Great Britain, and a lot of people are starting to criticize that balloon stunt they've put together, this hot air balloon that's shaped to look like a crying baby Donald Trump in a diaper, and something like $25,000 they collected to put this up there. And a lot of people are saying it makes us look bad. It makes Great Britain, the people of Great Britain, look childish. And yes, it does. Piers Morgan is out there saying that London's Mayor Sadiq Khan really does have more important things to be doing than seeing that this balloon has the permissions to be flown. And now the organizers of the balloon are saying, well, they may have enough money to put up two. Over in Spain, the migrants coming in by sea are up 120%. And we knew that this was going to happen when Spain agreed to take in that ship of migrants that Italy turned away. So the Spanish Interior Ministry is saying 14,446 migrants have reached Spain during the first 6 months of 2018. Almost 6,000 of them arrived just in June. Okay, here in New York, there's been another anti-ICE incident where the Department of Homeland Security's Albany, New York office was vandalized by Open Borders protesters who are demanding that all immigration and border enforcement be ended across the United States of America. They need those voters, especially with rank-and-file Democrats starting to walk away. They need those voters. They need to get them registered. They need to get them to vote. So these vandals basically sprayed all kinds of messages across the building on the stone. It's going to be very difficult to get that out. Apparently in downtown Columbus, Ohio, earlier today, Antifa and the Open Borders crowd basically had a riot that blocked streets in downtown Columbus. And apparently it got out of hand. The police had to come on in. But yeah, it's a campaign of terror. It's brown shirt tactics. Now, we talked about this last week, but we're going to mention it again. It's a reminder of just how oblivious to the reality the Open Borders people are. Last week in Oakland, where Mayor Libby Schaaf tipped off illegal alien criminals earlier this year to an impending raid by ICE, ICE and the local police department were executing a raid on a suspected child sex trafficking home when a crowd of angry white liberals assembled to protest, thinking that it was an immigration raid. So they were basically protesting in favor of child trafficking and, once again, slavery. It's part of the history of the Democratic Party that they hope their black constituents don't remember. That during the Civil War, it was the Democrats who stayed in favor of slavery here. Now, this is where it gets really, really dangerous. Over in Boston, they're holding a city council meeting tomorrow to discuss the idea of a measure that would let foreign nationals vote in elections. Now, they're limiting it to non-U.S. citizens who are living in the country legally. But here's the issue. The 26th Amendment makes it clear that one must be a citizen in order to vote. And the only way to change that is with another amendment. There is also, as I mentioned earlier in the show, a federal law that prohibits non-citizens from voting in federal elections. Trump needs to get some people in his administration who will actually enforce the laws. The laws are already on the books. They're just being ignored for the sake of political expediency. And we'll be right back after these commercials.
Many people tell us about their experience with Extendivite. Just listen to what Glenn has to say.
Prior to taking it, I had diabetic neuropathy. The Extendivite reduced that significantly. Acid reflux was reduced. I had athlete's foot, very severe. Trimmed that down to about 75% dandruff, almost completely gone. I had occipital neuralgia at the base of my skull. I was having migraines, reduced by about 90%. Heart palpitations, my heart would kind of stall out. I would skip a beat. Very uncomfortable. And when walking from downstairs going to sleep, by the time I got to the bedroom, which is just one flight of stairs, my heart was pounding, coming out of my chest. My vision was blurry. This completely solved that problem. Great product. Thanks.
Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And if you can support Republic Broadcasting, we really need you to step in. We're in a fight here to restore the Republic. We're in a fight to prevent the rise of the New World Order and all the evils that would entail. And we're getting a sneak preview of those abuses right now. Forced vaccination, banning of anything that isn't purchased from a corporation, no privacy. It will get worse under global government. So we need your help. And there's no such thing as too small of a donation. So if you can help, the postal address to send a donation, cash, check, money order, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Road, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. Now, if you'd like to phone in with a credit card donation, that number is 800-724-2719, extension 1 during business hours, extension 3 at all other times. Now, getting on into the gun control issue, the U.S. has announced they're committed to the UN's gun control agenda, which at the moment means everybody's going to share their gun registration information globally. So everyone in the world is going to know you have a gun. Now, the United Nations has stated their ultimate aim is disarmament of ordinary people, which is obviously going to be necessary for them to enforce their New World Order. Now, we've reported in recent weeks on several cases where people have used legally owned firearms to thwart crimes in progress. Last week we were talking about that mother down in Texas. Some guy tried to steal her car with her 2 kids in the back, and she shot him. But interestingly enough, just on the 6th, Gabby Gifford's gun control group retweeted NPR criticism of the good guy with a gun scenario and said that claims of armed citizens defending themselves is a myth. No, it isn't. It happens 1.5 million times, more than that, every single year. But they need to get rid of that idea that you have a legitimate reason to have a gun by saying that, no, nobody's defending themselves with a gun. Well, apparently over in Milwaukee, there was a gentleman who launched an attack on a restaurant employee and was stopped when another employee pulled a concealed carry gun. And the police are looking for the guy now. So again, the reality is that people with guns are protecting themselves and their homes, their lives, their property, because the police are never there in time to thwart a crime. They show up afterwards to clean up the mess, pose for the newspaper cameras, and act like they're relevant. When a crime is actually being committed, there are only 2 parties present, the perpetrator and the victim. And if the victim is able to basically thwart the perpetrator, then that's a crime that did not occur. Now, over in Chicago, anti-gun protesters, David Hogg and his group are out there again, basically held a protest and literally shut down a Chicago highway. And the Chicago mayor said it was okay. The original plan was they were just going to close a lane of this Interstate 94, and instead the protesters just blocked it completely. And the march ran for 3 hours on Saturday, and police literally shut off northbound traffic. And the governor came down and said, you can't do that. Block off a couple of lanes for the protesters and let the traffic go through. And the gun grabbers are now on his case. You're living in a fantasy land. We've got to deal with this. Israel's going the other direction, saying that you can't fend off terrorists with pizza trays. I'm sorry, Israel is going the other direction. And they're relaxing gun rules that will allow up to 40,000 more people to get weapons. And gun lobbying politicians hope the measure will help ordinary citizens to neutralize terrorists. Well, with proper training, yes. But I'm all in favor of an armed populace. And it does work for Israel. It does work for Sweden. It works in Kennesaw, Georgia. Now, here's an interesting story. Down in Mexico, in the city of Reynosa, police officers have blown the whistle and gone public on their commanding officers telling them to stand down when it comes to fighting cartel operators. So they've gone public saying that our commanders are telling us not to interfere with the drug cartels. Now, the state police have been the driving force in fighting off the growing power of the Gulf Cartel in the region. And they've paid a price for it. They've lost 15 officers. All right, we're going to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll-free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened? What's really
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. Now, down in Haiti, there have been riots, violent demonstrations all over the island regarding a fuel price hike. Now, the Haitians are dealing still with the lingering after effects of that great earthquake. Very little of the money that was raised for Haitian quake relief ever actually got to the people of Haiti. And apparently, Americans who are vacationing down there are being targeted. And the U.S. Embassy in Port-au-Prince warned American tourists to shelter in place. Apparently, the streets are so dangerous they can't get to the airport safely to leave. So it's an ugly, ugly situation down there. Sometimes it feels like the whole world is going to heck in a handbasket here. All right, let's get into some health and safety and medical news here. There was a resolution by the United Nations affiliated World Health Assembly, and they met in Geneva to basically talk about a resolution that mother's milk is healthier for children, and countries should strive to limit the inaccurate or misleading marketing of breast milk subsidies. Now, one of the greatest triumphs of the advertising industry was convincing women that what came out of their bodies was somehow less beneficial to their babies than something coming out of a factory. But there have been a lot of studies showing that first of all, what comes out of the factories doesn't have all the chemicals, doesn't have the hormones and enzymes and all kinds of things the baby needs to have to develop properly. And so they were getting ready to pass this resolution saying it's time to basically encourage women to go back to breastfeeding. And then the United States delegation, embracing the interest of the infant formula manufacturers, basically got up and said, we oppose this. We absolutely oppose this. Bunch of sellouts here. And that is the reality of the country we're living in right now. They're not concerned about what's healthy or safe or good. Only that anything that you need, you buy from a corporation. That's it. Now, here's an interesting little story. Apparently, there was this family that took a vacation to San Francisco, and they had an 8-month-old son who fell out of the bed in the family's hotel room and hit his head. There was no blood, but the baby was inconsolable. So this family took the kid to the Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital. They're from South Korea, by the way. And the doctors at the hospital quickly determined the baby was just fine, just a little bruising on his nose and forehead. He took a short nap in his mother's arms, drank some infant formula, and was discharged with a clean bill of health. The bill to the family from this hospital was $18,000 for a bottle of formula. $18,000. All right, we're going to take a phone call now from Stephen in Oregon. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. How are you today?
I'm hanging in there.
You used the phrase hell in a handbasket. Do you know the origins of that phrase?
No, I actually don't.
I do, and I will tell you. It originated in the West when the Chinese miners used to get lowered in baskets down the mine.
Oh.
And when they were finished with the miners, they would go down to hell in a handbasket and not be let back up.
Okay, well, I'm not happy about that last part, but knowing what conditions are like down in those mines back in the days before proper ventilation and air conditioning, because the deeper you go in the earth, it gets warmer, the air pressure goes up. It's not good working conditions. Well, that's an interesting story. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome, Michael, and bless you.
Thank you very much. We're going to let you go here. Phone lines are now open, 800-313-9443. Down in Mexico, in Chiapas, once again, we have a corporate abuse of resources. Mexico licenses Coca-Cola to take a huge amount of water from Chiapas, which is semi-arid. They don't have a lot of water. And Coca-Cola has taken so much, ordinary people's wells are starting to run dry. Well, not a problem. Coca-Cola will sell the water back to them. And it sells the bottled water for the same price as Coca-Cola. Now, taking people's water and then selling it back to them with a license from the government is pretty low. And we've seen it here in the United States. We've seen it all kinds of places. The CEO of Nestle is on record as saying he doesn't believe humans have a natural right to water, that it should be bottled and commoditized and sold by corporations. Next, it'll be air. I'm looking back at the movie Quantum of Solace, and it was very prescient because that's what the plot of the movie was, capturing the water resources of a nation and then selling it back to them at a high price. All righty, let's take another phone call. Glenn in Philadelphia, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike. I'm looking to hire a sales trainer. I'm trying to find a travel agent that managed to sell Haiti as a tourist destination to vacationers. I can't seem to find it.
Well, you need to understand that, first of all, because of the Haitian economy, a U.S. dollar goes a very, very, very long way. It's very inexpensive down there. And following the Haitian quake, what money that did get down there to Haiti was used to buy up large amounts of real estate at rock bottom prices on which have been built some very nice resorts. And it's not entirely uncommon for countries that are very difficult to live in to have these isolated little enclaves with resorts. In fact, one I remember when I went to many years ago is Los Hadas down in Mexico. And for those of you old enough to remember the Bo Derek movie 10, that resort, that was Los Hadas. And we arrived at the airport and we were put on a bus and we were not allowed off until we were inside the gates at Los Hadas. And while we were there, we were told, you don't go outside the gate. Bad things happen. There was apparently a panther roaming the grounds. And for those people who wanted to go on out and do activities not at Los Hadas itself, like deep sea fishing, you had to be escorted through Guadalajara. And it was very, very gritty. And to make it worse, I didn't even really catch anything.
I always, I remember a few years ago, a resort goer in Haiti wandered beyond the limits on the beach and got himself killed by a Rastafarian. And then it implies, I know people went to Fiji, same thing, stay on the resort, et cetera. I always think of there being three Mexicos, really. The Mexico of Mexico City and the border towns, the Mexico of the resort coasts, and the inner Mexico, like Guadalajara.
Yes.
Which is like culturally a different world. So, very interesting stuff. About the water rights, Mike, let's not forget Nestle buying water right here in America for $500 to sell millions and millions of gallons at premium prices under a brand label name.
Yeah, I know. It's terrible. Again, I disagree with the head of Nestle. Our founding documents say that we have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which is a vague statement. It was originally supposed to be life, liberty, and property, but even back then there were money junkies. But if we have a right to life, then obviously we have a right to all of life's necessities, which includes food, air, and water. And so, but again, we're just headed down this fascist path where we're not going to be allowed to have anything that we can produce for ourselves or obtain for ourselves. Everything will be provided by some corporation at a huge markup.
I'm reminded of Alan Watt talking about ancient buildings in Europe with walled-off windows because the kings presumed to institute a sunlight tax. I thought that was interesting.
That is an interesting one.
Yeah, it's not a joke. There are actually old buildings in Europe with walled window, where windows were, that they walled them off to avoid the sunlight.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, at some point we might see an air tax. Especially if air pollution gets to be really, really bad. We'll have to have filtered air pumped into our homes for a small price.
Or they could calculate the cubic footage of your body and charge you a volume tax, a space tax.
When they're desperate for money,
And
anything can be taxed.
If they really want to tax people taking up space, they could always go after Congress. But Will Rogers,
Yep.
Anyway, all right. Thank you, Mike. Take
All right.
care.
Thanks an awful lot for the phone call. We're going to let you go. Now, here is one that really kind of bothers me. As you know, there is a very famous nun, Mother Teresa, who legend has it was this amazing, wonderful woman, although there have been bits coming out about her life where she wasn't quite as nice as described. But apparently, police in India have arrested a woman working at Mother Teresa's Missionaries of Charity for allegedly selling a 14-day-old baby, while 2 other employees of the charity have been detained and questioned regarding other potential cases of black market baby trafficking. And BBC reports that a complaint registered with the Indian state of Jharkhand's Child Welfare Committee led to the arrest and detainment. And they're saying that, they're trying to obtain the names of the mothers of the babies and find out just what happened. I find that very, very disappointing. But then look what we found out about what was really going on in Planned Parenthood. And look at what we found out about what was really going home in those Canadian residential schools and those Irish homes for unwed mothers. Okay, over in Baltimore this last week, there was kind of a weird incident at the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine where 2 buildings were evacuated over a possible tuberculosis contamination. Now, apparently these 2 buildings are joined by a walk bridge, and apparently there was a sample that was simply dropped and broke there. And Hazmat came on in and cleaned it all up, but they're saying they don't think anybody was really exposed. My question is going to be, who was being so reckless with a vial of tuberculosis, and why didn't that person immediately report that they'd had the accident? That's a bad one here. Okay. Over in Parliament, British Defense Secretary Gavin Williamson was giving a statement on Syria's democratic forces last week when his own iPhone heckled him or harassed him. And the Parliament broke into laughter. But it reminds us all there are serious security concerns about new technology, which are not being dealt with. So basically, they're saying we don't have to worry about Russian spies. We just have to have dumb UK ministers not understanding that your smartphone is listening to you all the time if you're running the voice assistant. And what's really interesting is the UK defense minister spends a lot of his time warning about the Russian threat to UK cybersecurity. It's kind of fun stuff there. All right. Over at Domain Factory, they have been hacked. Apparently it happened all the way back in January, but is only being reported now. And it was basically outed when an unknown attacker himself posted the breach note on the Domain Factory support forum. And it turns out the attacker breached the company service to obtain the data of one of its customers who apparently owes him a huge amount of money. And apparently the hacker, after getting that information, tried to report it to Domain Factory about the vulnerability. Was actually trying to do a good thing here. And he got ignored. And now Domain Factory is saying all users must change their passwords. There's been another scandal involving, well, not scandal, but another issue involving these personal fitness trainers. You put them on your wrist and you go running. And the data goes back to a central server on which there is a website where people can track their running. But so can anybody else. And so this running app, Polar Flow, has been exposing the locations and personal details of 6,400 spies and personnel at MI6, the White House, and GCHQ. Locations exposed by the software jogging heat maps include military bases and airfields, because people will run around the outside of the runways. You can literally build a map of the facility from the jogging data. It's amazing here. All right, I was talking about this a little bit earlier in the show when we were talking about the increasing threats to our privacy. And over at MIT, a group of researchers and students have developed an intelligent radar technology that makes it possible to see through walls to track people as they move around. Now, it's being pitched as something that would be useful for monitoring the elderly or sick as they go about their retirement homes. But obviously, like any other technology, it can be abused. We have to take another break for commercials. We'll be right back.
Did you know that neither the American Medical Association nor the American Bar Association were established to benefit the American people? Have you recognized that in our country, healthcare has little to do with health, and that our court system has nothing to do with justice? The priests of both medicine and law have been incentivized to implement a dark agenda on behalf of the Bilderbergers and their ilk. To protect ourselves and our progeny, we need to take a much closer look at how these two giant industries really work. Join me, Al Whitney, on In Defense of Humanity, Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central, as we expose the matrix and learn how not to consent to our own destruction.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
If you are one of the millions of people who get migraines, you need to know about MiGrelief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist who created MiGrelief, the patented dietary supplement that addresses nutritional deficiencies in adults and children with migraines. Thousands of physicians and pharmacists recommend MiGrelief.
Call 800-MIG-7354 or visit MIG911.com.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking about this new technology being developed at MIT. It's called RF Pose. And apparently it's using what they claim are low energy radio waves to basically see through walls. And what makes the system interesting is that apparently it is actually able to identify the individual on the other side of the wall. And they're claiming an 83% accuracy rate. And they're aiming it at healthcare facilities, where they want to let people wander around but need to know where they are at all times. And might be useful for search and rescue, to see if anybody's in a room without having to actually go in there. But again, the potential for abuse and misuse definitely exists here. Alrighty, there's been yet another massive data breach. This one is on TimeHop, and it's exposed the private details of more than 21 million users. And the service links to users' social media accounts to resurface memories from their old social media posts. I don't know why anybody would want to do that. I certainly don't. But apparently the company has revealed its cloud computing service was recently hacked, and the data of 21 million users was stolen. Most of the data included usernames and email addresses, and about 4.7 million people may have also had their phone number compromised. All right, we're going to take a phone call now here from Dave in Missouri. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, howdy, Mike. I hope your day has been blessed.
Thank you.
Yes. How was your weekend?
Busy, but, taking care of Claire and everything else.
Claire's doing okay.
Yes.
I've been out of touch all week, so I'm not up to speed on what's going on with y'all. But,
well, this is going back to the back injury she suffered in January, and we weren't able to actually get her into the Straub Clinic for the longest time, so we had no idea what we were dealing with, except that she was in a huge amount of pain. But she's in physical therapy, and she's seeing an orthopedist. August, we get a bone density scan to see how bad the osteoporosis might be. And she is a lot better. I mean, I can see it from being here on the outside. Looking back at what it was like even just 2-3 months ago, I'm seeing a tremendous improvement.
Well,
but she's frustrated.
Just make sure that she knows that. I'm sure. And please just make sure she knows there's so many of us out here who have her on our hearts. And, and we do pray for her and wish her the best. But, physical therapy, I mean, that's almost like treating cancer with radiation, I mean, sometimes it's a long, hard, painful, almost death-defying stunt just to get better. And so we feel for her and we pray for her and you all the time. And you're a blessed man for showing the world how to love a woman.
Well, thank you.
We're not in. Well, and I think you understand what I mean. Too many men just, and we get a bad rap because some of us do love our wives, and some of us would die for them. And you certainly would work yourself to death for that girl, and it's noted and appreciated. Now, you said something, and we've talked about this before. So, okay. Trump's going to
Dave, I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm going to have to put you on hold. We have to do a station identification, but don't hang up. I'm going to come right back to you. All right? So we'll be back after these few words.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read a few from Amazon.com. Dr. Sam Serino reviewed the Extendivite product. Good ingredients, feeling much better since taking product. It seems that the tablets work well. Once again, thank you for your product. My acid reflux has really improved thanks to the Extendivite. Together with my thumb joints, the pain is gone and I'm able to grip things much better. My friend has peripheral arterial disorder and their lower legs were hurting in a red color, but thankfully, there has been a significant improvement. Kind regards, Janice. My husband feels a big difference using Extendivite. Thank you. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero? The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 3. And we're talking with Dave in Missouri. And Dave, if you could just pick up where you left off.
You bet. First, folks, please always support RBN. We have to have an outlet to the truth. We cannot be lied to until we're all dead, and we've got to have an outlet. So please support RBN and whatever happened.com. Now, you discussed the tariff situation, which I have been a long time advocate of. I mean, I really feel like that for so long, the economic interests of working families, of small locally owned businesses, of hometowns, even our mid-sized American corporations that, are not Walmart and McDonald's. The economy's more than but they have been sabotaged by politicians who have been purchased, and we all know this story.
Yes.
Now, so the Chinese have taken total advantage, and not just the Chinese, but many for decades now, at least 3, have taken total advantage of the fact that the American political system is utterly corrupt and for sale to the highest bidder. Stealing our, because Dustin has laid it out. He's he's took me to task on this from time to time, because he says, you can't say China stole America's factories when America gave them to her.
Yes.
Okay, I get that. Now, but the fact is, China has increasing surpluses and has gotten richer and richer, while we are poorer and poorer and are deeper in debt. And our hometowns are emptied of opportunities for our children who would like maybe to contribute to their history and where they grew up, but they can't because there's no jobs there to keep them there. So then they get corralled into the cities where they're just kind of kept in tenant poverty, at the same low wage jobs that are really available everywhere. But some of them, a lot of kids these days can't ever afford a car, so public transportation is a big deal. Whatever, there are jobs available in the cities, even though they don't pay. So this is where I was going. I don't want to get off track. We haven't had an American politician in at least recent political history, if ever the political history in America. Now, you may be able to set me straight on that, but I don't know of anyone who has really taken on the economic controls, really taken the reins of the economy as president like Trump has. Certainly, we wouldn't have steel manufacturing companies opening in this country under Hillary or Bernie, and it wouldn't have happened under any of the Republican candidates either. So maybe Rand Paul, if he got in there. But even he wouldn't have been as hard on this issue. So $34 billion. Dude, when you're talking about $1 trillion a year, what is that? That's a drop in the bucket. So now he says $500 billion. Hey, that's going to get their eyes open. Is this a negotiating chip? Maybe. The trade war? What? I mean, really, China needs us more than we do them. All they've done is bankrupt us and fill our landfills with poison plastic crap. So, I mean, at a certain point, the Chinese have not done the American people any service by taking advantage of our corrupt politicians. and exploited those opportunities that came along with it. So, Dustin, yes, you're right, brother. Yeah, it's hard to blame China. I mean, it's like, blaming somebody for selling you a Mercedes for $30. Kind of hard to blame them for that. But at the end of the day, this has got to be addressed initially, or economically there is no future for this country, and there may not be now. But, just these signs, and I think you've seen that, the American steel opening up. I travel the country all the time. I'm seeing startups. I'm seeing so many empty warehouses, Mike. It's heartbreaking. I'm seeing them build brand new warehouses that are left empty. I mean, there are towns where, just mile after mile, they're beautiful, perfect warehouse facilities. Maybe 3 of them have anything going on, And so you look at it on the big face. No, it could not continue at the trajectory that's been going. Is this going to provoke a trade war? Who cares, man? Who cares, really? What we need is investment in our hometowns so our children have a future, and our middle class can, again, maybe thrive someday. Does that make sense? So I'm all for it.
It does make sense. And my caution about the trade war is not that, Trump isn't trying to level the playing field and not trying to re-energize our manufacturing. It's that our manufacturing is so weak, it could be botched. And there's also the issue of the national debt. But I'm encouraged by the opening or the reopening of this steel mill. But that's 800 jobs. And when you look at how many people are out of work, we've got a long, long way to go. And let's see. Mike, are we able to put Dave and Dustin on the air together?
I would love to talk to Dustin.
Okay, Dustin, can you hear me?
Hey, Dave.
Hey, there we go.
Hi, Mike. Hey, Dave.
Hey, Dustin, how are you, brother? Man, we love it whenever you call in. We really were some of your biggest fans. No, we do, man. I mean, you've always got something funny to say. You're so knowledgeable about really world events that so many of us miss on. And so I don't know where you get it all. I don't know if you sit in front of the, if you just sit in front of the internet all day. I don't know where you find the information you do, but it's very, it's fun to listen to you. And I just want you to rebut what I had to say because I know you have a different take on it.
I tell you, you know what got me into this, Mike?
Yeah.
What really happened got me because I wasn't really not knowledgeable. I used to watch MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, and I believe their stuff, and then I got watching what really happened, and I started realizing after George Bush and Obama, there's something else going on here. It's not what it seems.
Was there one single moment that woke you up? I mean, mine was when I met Hillary Clinton in the Walmart general office in 1987. Before anybody knew who the woman was, she was on the Walmart board. It took time for me to digest everything that I absorbed by trying to put an American-made department in the new supercenters and being run out of there by that blonde who later turned out to be Hillary Clinton. But it got me watching events. And so really my pivotal point was way back about the time I was 20 years old in 87 with that episode. Was there something, one particular thing you can think of that kind of was like your snap to moment where it's like, my God, why didn't I see it?
My first early was Yugoslavian war. That was it. And then Iraq, 9/11 in Iraq. And then 9/11 happened, Iraq war, and I said, Iraq had nothing to do with it. Right there, that told me that was it. That told me everything was a lie. Everything we've been told was a lie. So then you research, then after that, like Mike says, you research back until the history of the country, the history of the world, and you figure out, man, we've been asleep our whole life.
Well, and where they get us is that it is so evil and diabolical that we can't really comprehend it because you or I could never do a thing like that, and none of the listeners could either. We couldn't do those things, and so it's hard to get your head around that there are people that are that evil and they control us. That's tough to digest,
Mike, what was your Mike? You've been in this a long time. Like, what was your entrance into believing what you were told?
Well,
I'm just curious.
The Vince Foster case. I mean, I'd sort of already come to understand that we'd been lied to about the Kennedy assassination, but I was still laboring under this rather naive delusion that it was an historical oddity. Then, of course, I ran afoul of the political powers that be with the Vince Foster case. And that's when my eyes really opened and I said, this country is nothing at all like we're told it is.
And that leads me, Mike, I hate to, I watched the Jimmy Dore. If you watch, Dave, go watch Jimmy Dore. You might not like him, he's a progressive, but he talks about Ed Schultz, how he was told to push the party line, and you got to watch it, like about the wars, like Phil Donahue and Jesse Ventura. That's why they got fired, because they're against the wars. So General Electric, we all know owned NBC, right? At the time, so but I don't want to say this, but I hate to say it, but our country's finished at this point. Like if China's we're only 15 to 19% of China's what they import here. They can go elsewhere to the rest of the world. Basically, you're seeing a end of a unipolar America / Britain to a multipolar world, and it's going to hurt like a lot.
Yep.
I mean, really bad here. Because, like Mike said earlier, like with the France and Germany don't use the U.S. dollar, those dollars are going to come back home. Like, we got so much debt here, and people don't realize we're the world's reserve currency.
We're one of the world's reserve currency. We've lost the position of being the only reserve currency, and now there are several operating in parallel. And the U.S. dollar is still a major reserve currency, but it's losing, shall we say, market share.
And that's the thing that kind of gets to me. I'm sorry, go ahead, Dustin.
I'm just saying, we were given this special privilege, and we blew it. We blew it after Bretton Woods. Back in the 70s, when they took us off the gold standard, we blew it. Yep. The gold standard, they took us off because we were running a Ponzi scheme. We handed out more gold certificates than we had gold backing up. We were running a Ponzi pyramid scheme. We blew it. That was our default.
What are our treasuries now if not that? And it all comes back on the backs of the taxpayer who are bankrupt. And so, I agree with you completely. But this is my thing, and that's why it's a radical idea. I've said it for years. Some people are starting to agree with it. Some are like all on board. Others are like, oh, it could never happen. Dude, we can't allow these Jewish banksters who have destroyed us economically to then make us responsible and accountable for what they've done. I say zero the whole thing out. Leave the Rothschilds. Leave the Rockefellers, leave those folks holding this economic bag that they built. Zero out the treasuries. Go back to a currency managed for the people's best interest rather than by private interest. Now, people say, "Oh, that could never happen." That would be it. But really, we're getting into a box where we don't have any choice but do that, or forever own the debt that is not ours, that they put on us.
Okay,
but we're
Dave,
surely going to own, and our kids will too.
Dave, whenever you say we need to go back to, managing the currency for the benefit of the people, and somebody says that would never work, you remind them that's the system that this nation started with. There were no private central banks, and that was.
Mike, who says that? You know who says that? Of course, that's the parakeet MSM. That's all of the employees of the bankster thieves who own the corporations, who want to perpetuate poverty and convince you there's no way you can ever get out of it because this is your debt, it belongs to your children, when it's a lie. The whole thing is a lie. Well, I say zero it out and start over from scratch.
But Dave, the whole thing is, this is not just a Jewish thing. This is a globalist thing. It's like the globalism is their religion. It's not Jewish or Catholic or Christian or Hindu or whatever. You can't blame the Jewish people for, like Israel. You can't blame all the things going on in Israel on the Jews. The Hasidics don't even believe in Israel. I live in New Jersey, right next to. I live in New Jersey, right next to Lakewood.
One at a time. Let's be civil.
Sorry.
Well, I live in Lakewood, right next to New Jersey. It's a very big Hasidic area. I used to work in Lakewood, which has, I talked to a lot of Hasidics, and, they tell me things and, and banks and this or that. I mean, yeah, there's Jewish people in banks, but this is bigger than that.
Well, I misspoke. I misspoke. I didn't mean Jewish. Rothschilds were coming to head. It is the Zionists. It is the globalists. But it's just an evil at a level that most people can't fathom. So therefore, it's hard for anybody to ever get a hold of. Because you just can't wrap your mind about it because you couldn't do that. And so what I'm saying now, do you agree that we should liberate ourselves from the debt these thieves have placed on us? Is that ever a possibility in reality?
No, I don't think we can. At this point, I think this country's finished.
We can when it all collapses. When it all collapses and the currency becomes worthless, then it doesn't matter what numbers are out there. The debt is worth absolutely zero. Now, Dave, I got an email here from somebody asking me to ask you, who's going to man those old factories? Transgenders, people who are busy checking their phones, and they're being glib here, but they're raising a valid point. Along with rebuilding our factories, we have to deal with the fact that our education system has not produced a generation of young people well suited to factory work. Everybody wanted to grow up and be a white-collar worker or an art history major or something like that. And we need to go back to just having schools that teach the basic skills: reading, writing, math, science, engineering, design, shop class, automotive class, and turn our nation back into a nation of people who actually build things rather than sit and be forced to buy them from some large corporation somewhere.
You're right. My best answer to the question, and I thank whoever the emailer was for the question. It's a great one. And I've always struggled with that too. It almost feels like Trump's doing this backward, doesn't it? By going after trade before we have a means to produce those things that we're no longer going to be able to import if all this does shake out like that. And so then our stores are going to be empty. And yes, you're right. We have no workforce. We've got, a generation of kids who are mindless as to what it takes to do anything other than, manage the toggle switches on their Xbox. And they have they don't want anything more than that. They've got no more ambition than that. You got to fault the parents. You got to fault our society. But at the end of the day, the emailer is absolutely right. The question is dead on the money. You've got to have somebody to man the factories. Otherwise, Dustin was talking about it back when an AI conversation sometime earlier. You're gonna have robots everywhere in the shopping malls with no customers because there's no money, and that's really kind of what it looks like the globalists are trying to engineer. But so the emailer is exactly right. That's probably one of our most pressing issues. We do not have a suitable workforce to rebuild what has been destroyed over the last 3 decades. And Trump wants to go ahead and initiate what they're all calling a trade war, which is going to leave us deficient in products that at least the consumer can purchase, maybe not for long, but at least they can now. So it almost feels like this is going in reverse, where first you should try to rebuild the manufacturing base somehow. But he is creating demand, and he is supporting, like this steel factory, even if it's just his rhetoric. And so that's just the best answer I got. I don't know either, but I don't want to see this debt hung around our children's necks forever. And I hate to see us continually, for lack of a better word, played the chump by people. What? Because we're not able to work for ourselves? We're all too lazy? That's, it's just hard to settle in. But guys, I have loved this conversation. I have to jump because I'm going to get in trouble if I get caught on the phone where I'm at right now. I love you, RB. And Dustin, you're I think the world of you, brother. And Mike, I love you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that. We'll talk to you soon here. And Dustin, getting on back to what you're saying, I would love to see America's factories and manufacturing rebuilt. I'm concerned that because of the absence of a skilled pool of workers, that this will accelerate the trend toward automation and robotics. And frankly, if we rebuild our factories in this country with robots and automation, we haven't really fixed the problems with the economy. And that is an area of concern.
That's why I think it's too late, Mike, because, you know, with Ford coming back or one steel plant with 800 people, it's too late because of the artificial intelligence per se and the robotics. It's just too late. We can't do anything to fix this. It's going to have to collapse and rebuild it from scratch. Because,
I agree.
Like I
I've
said,
been saying that
it's
all along.
Unipolar, Mike, unipolar to multipolar world. But what people don't realize, I know you do, Mike, is the petrodollar. If that fails, you're going to have a dollar in your own country. You're going to have to solve your own debt, right? We're going to have to. I mean, how is that going to work out? You're not going to be the empire we were anymore.
We're
Pretty
already
much, right?
an empire in decline. This empire is clearly in decline. That's why you're starting to see countries pull away from U.S. hegemonic domination and pivot toward Iran, China, Russia, what have you. And they're describing it as an evil Russian plot, but of course it isn't. Anyway, Dustin, got to take a break for commercials. Thank you for the phone call, and we'll be right back.
Extendivite is more than just a heart tonic. Most basic diseases are caused by yeast in the gut and metals in the liver, and we all have a bit of both. The garlic in Extendivite has a yeast-killing effect in the gut while also helping the sulfur enzyme in the liver get rid of the metals. Extendivite just may improve your overall health. Products like Extendivite are the only way we are going to get our society healthy. And if you're waiting for the government and pharmaceutical care to solve your health problems, you're going to have a long, disappointing wait, I think. Extendivite is a complete formula for extended life in the new millennium. 80 can be the new 60. Extendivite is available in capsule or liquid form for just $69.95 for a 2-month supply. To get started, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks.
Welcome to What Really Happened Radio. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. And now, set your eyes on the future and let's consider what really happened.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're going to go back to the phones here to Rob in Wisconsin. Aloha, Rob. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I just wanted to comment on what that last caller was saying about how everything has to come down because there's no way of fixing it. And the reason is that the people are the problem. They won't change until it becomes a need to change or a must change. And that's why the whole normalcy bias has to collapse in order to change to a new normal. Because, and even then, you've got X percentage of the people that will refuse to move out of their old normal, and who knows, they might just expire, they might just sit in a corner and cry until whatever. Yet, with that in mind, Trump and the team that's in there, they know all of this stuff. They know that you can't fix a broken system. Yet at the same time, you give people the ability to, him and the team, the ability to buy time so that they can implement their plans, because I can't believe for one moment that this man who's run his life and made his money and cut his teeth on bankruptcies, fixing bankrupt companies, that he's taking over the biggest bankrupt corporation of the world, that he's not looking at how he takes it down and restarts.
Well, I don't think.
Do you agree?
I don't think that it can be taken down and restarted from within the system. I still think that we're going to have to go through a Soviet Union style collapse in this country, and that our current economic system has to basically be shut down. We need to go back to honest banking. And we're starting to see more states and more countries around the world realizing that private central banking is a scam. It's a debt trap that is designed so you cannot escape it. And all of the economic woes, the wealth inequality, the hardship that we're suffering goes back to those private central banks. And that's why the founding fathers fought so hard to keep that evil from being in this country. The revolution was fought to free us from a private central bank. And unfortunately, because Congress will sell their own mother for $1. A little over 100 years ago, the American people got sold back into the slavery of yet another private central bank. But Americans are waking up and realizing that, yeah, there's an issue here. The economy, as it's set up, does not operate for the ordinary people. And as we've become more fascist over the last few years, we're seeing the wealth inequality accelerate. And at some point, it's going to break. It has to break. There's no way that this economy can be sustained the way it operates right now. So it's going to have to break. And then we, the people, are going to have to stand up and say, we want an honest money system.
Well, and I agree completely, because from what I'm seeing and hearing is that they are, once they bring it, well, they're trying to bring it down when they can bring it down instead of when the globalist elite decide that it's a good time to do. And that way they can control the narrative and point to, hey, how did this happen? Because that's what I tell people. It's just like Dr. Deagle always says. Ask better questions. How did this happen? Well, how did it work? Well, okay, this, and this. And then when you start to, that's when the Federal Reserve gets laid naked and they can call for them to be audited, and then everything is pulled out. But in the meantime, though, you'll still have chaos of some sort. It doesn't matter what system, how you restart it, how it comes down, and how it goes to, you have a transition period that to get to the new normal, people are going to go through rough times. I mean, I've taught preparedness just on an average level with smart people, and they flat out tell me, well, they're okay, they got guns or they got this, and John Moore and I have had this discussion ad nauseum. And, again, but the biggest challenge there are the people. The people have it too easy in this country. We've been trained to be distracted, to accept what comes along. Just wait for the next good, fun, excitement, the good meal. The fluoride will take care of everything. You'll not remember much. So it's a sad thing. It really is.
It really is. It really is. I mean, there's a life cycle of nations. And the last part of it before the downfall is the complacency of the ordinary citizen. And that is, sadly,
bingo.
Yeah, where a lot of Americans still are.
Most, most of us good people they don't even realize that we are out there. They're yelling at us for trying to wake them up and point to this stuff, and they don't even understand or give us the due respect that we're out there fighting to save their lives and their future quality of life, to reinstate it to what it should really be. And they don't want to look at it. They refuse to look at it. And
yeah, it's kind of like the movie They Live with the sunglasses.
So,
all right, well, listen.
I'll tell you what. Have a good night.
All right, yeah, Rob, we got to let you go. We got to do a commercial break, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. There's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Do you know there is an ongoing war right here in America? Are you aware that U.S. citizens have been classified as enemies of the state since 1933? Have you recognized that our entire government is really a vast network of interlocking corporations engaged in commerce? Look up Title 28, Section 3002. Tune in to In Defense of Humanity on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Find out what's really going on and learn how to protect yourself and your family as flesh and blood men and women living in a corporate reality.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just scratch yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far $5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. So let's get some more science news in here. As you know, we're in the middle of summer, and inevitably we're getting all these news stories about, oh, record heat here, record heat there. For a while, they were trying to blame the wildfires in the American West on global warming until it came on out that many of them were set by an illegal immigrant. That story kind of went away. But apparently, all over the country, even though it's summer, they still keep track of the temperatures, the cold temperatures. And up in Eugene, Oregon, they set a cold temperature record. And this was July 3rd. So coldest July temperature since records were being kept. All-time record low here. Now, Montana also had snow on July 3rd. There's snow up in the Rockies, and yes, it's the higher elevations. But still, when you go back and you look at all the scare headlines when the global warming thing started up about how snowfalls were a thing of the past, and they're still trying to push that agenda. Humans are causing global warming. You have to pay a carbon tax. You have to do this. You have to do that. You have to surrender more of your rights and liberties and more control over your life to save planet Earth in the midst of all these wars, which are causing a lot more environmental damage than we civilian non-combatants are doing. And let's be honest, that volcano we've got going on down here on the Big Island is pouring out more greenhouse gas than everybody in America. Now, one of the big talking points for the global warming movement was how the Arctic was going to be ice-free. Al Gore predicted an ice-free Arctic. I think it was back in 2014. Came and went, didn't happen. And it turns out that two of Russia's largest outshipment points for oil and liquefied natural gas are now packed with ice. In the past, this time of year, they've been open. That's why those terminal points are there. And apparently tankers and carriers are stranded in this paralyzed area, which, it's now packed with this ice. And Russia's nuclear-powered icebreakers are working overtime, trying to keep the shipping lanes open. Now, as you know, climate is actually dominated by solar activity. And we're heading into a grand solar minimum. And the latest research is showing, this is over at Space Weather Archive, sunspots are becoming scarce, very scarce. And so far this year, the sun has been blank almost 60% of the time, totally devoid of any sunspots. Whole weeks going by without sunspots. Now, experts have been saying this is going to happen on the current solar cycle, and we have these overlapping solar cycles that are aligning together. But the surprise is how fast the sunspots are going away. Now, the solar minimum of 2008-2009 was unusually deep. The sun set records for low sunspot numbers, weak solar wind, and depressed solar irradiance. So it's really starting to happen. Now, Lord Christopher Monckton, who is a critic of the theory of human-caused climate change, basically describes it as a hoax and how ridiculous, pushing the idea that carbon dioxide has more of an effect on the Earth than the sun itself. And apparently, Lord Christopher Monckton made an interesting discovery in studying the climate models being used by the global warming charlatans, in that they didn't even include solar effects in the models. They were just modeling a fantasy world where carbon dioxide made things warm. And by the way, don't forget, a couple of years ago, NASA actually came out and admitted that their research showed that carbon dioxide in the atmosphere does not, in fact, act like a pane of glass in a greenhouse. It acts as an atmospheric coolant. because it catches some of the sun's energy and re-radiates it back out into space at a different frequency. It's fluorescing in a way here. Now, another one of the global warming cult's pet stories is how the ice in Antarctica is melting. Oh, it's melting, it's melting. And one of their favorites has been the Pine Island Glacier, which photos over the last several years have shown is in fact decreasing in size. See, that proves human-caused global warming. Well, actually, no. They found an active volcanic heat source beneath the Pine Island Glacier. And they're saying this is going to change dramatically how the melting ice was studied. Well, yeah, because now you know there's a heat source that can't be blamed on human activity. And here's another inconvenient truth for you. Greenhouse gas emissions are actually falling right now. The environmental data for 2017 is pouring in, and the greenhouse gas emissions are falling under Trump. Now, whether he can take credit for it entirely or not remains to be seen. But a report released last week by the Rhodium Group says that even though Trump continues to unravel Obama-era climate and clean energy policies, falling costs of renewable energy and natural gas are keeping U.S. greenhouse gas emissions on the downswing. Okay. Now let's get into the debate over cannabis. As you know, cannabis is known to have medical benefit. And as you know, there is a pushback against legalizing cannabis coming from big tobacco, big alcohol, and not too surprisingly, the pharmaceutical industry, which even as it condemns cannabis use for medical purposes, is already at work trying to develop medications based on cannabis, but manufactured only by them under patent. So what you used to be able to grow in your backyard, you now have to buy from another corporation. So there have actually been countless studies that show cannabis has medical benefits. Cannabis kills tumor cells. And because there hasn't been a lot of funding for this kind of research, because it is a threat to the big pharmaceutical corporations, there hasn't been enough research done yet. The funds just aren't there. We've just scratched the surface. Now, the FDA has actually approved the first medicine derived from marijuana. And everybody's saying, will this lead to total decriminalization? No, quite the reverse. Because once they say that people who need cannabis for medical purposes can buy it at the pharmacy, then they'll say, now that there's no more reason to legalize it. And we're going to work to ban it. And if you want to get intoxicated, you go right on down to that bottle shop and you buy something that comes out of a factory. Now, over in Oklahoma, their voters have approved medical marijuana legalization. And so the original redneck state has legalized medical marijuana. And it was a tight vote, 56.3% to 43.7%, assuming somebody wasn't trying to rig the election in favor of big pharma here. Now, here's a surprise, because when states started legalizing marijuana, one of the hue and cries coming out of the ban all fun things people was it was going to lead to traffic accidents. People were going to be driving while smoking. Well, that's illegal anyway, and you can't drive while you're drinking either. But it turns out over in Nevada, newly published data from the Nevada Department of Public Safety revealed something unexpected. Traffic deaths plunged by 10% in the first year since recreational marijuana was legalized. So isn't it funny how every time something is being worked for and the other side comes out with all these horrible claims, and that they always wind up being discredited down the road after the damage has unfortunately been done. Researchers at the University of Amherst, in conjunction with scientists from 13 other universities, looked into a material called triclosan. It's a common antimicrobial found in toothpastes and soaps, and they discovered, unfortunately, with tests on mice, it promotes the development of colon cancer. They had a control group, they had a test group. The test group was getting the triclosan, and they came down with all these medical problems. Inflammatory bowel disease, colon cancer, pain and spasm, diarrhea, rectal bleeding. Again, it's a tragic thing to live in a country where products are being sold to us that are not necessarily effective, occasionally dangerous, but because they're making money and the corporations are happy, the government just lets it continue. And meanwhile, our right to simply grow what we want on our own land, make our own medicines that we know are safe, is under constant attack. Now, over in Belgium, at the Tahanga nuclear power plant, they have serious concerns about the safety of the station, which has experienced several shutdowns in recent years. Now, the station's operator, Engia Electrab, has found what they call instability in the reinforced concrete ceiling of the reactor's armored bunker, meaning the outside vessel. And apparently, they've determined that the anomalies have been there since the bunker was built. That somebody just built it wrong. And it's been that way all along. All right, so let's talk about our volcano because it's still volcanoing. And over at fissure number 8, the lava is pouring on out. It's now started to form its own cone, and it's about 200 feet high, which is about the same height as the Aloha Tower, for those of you who have been here to Honolulu. And people are starting to say, it's Hawaii's newest volcano. It's Hawaii's newest volcano. Well, not exactly, because to volcanologists, a volcano has to have its own distinct connection down to the magma chamber. Now, this new cone on fissure 8 is clearly an offshoot of Kilauea's drainage system, and technically is not a new distinct volcano, which will probably not stop the tour operators from saying so when tourism is allowed back into the area. But apparently, more than 650 homes have now been consumed by the lava, forcing the evacuation of 2,000 people, around 600 of whom are still living in temporary accommodation. And nobody has any idea when this is going to stop. And Kilauea is not the only volcano that is rocking and rolling right now. Over in Bali, Mount Agung has erupted for a third time. It's raining down rocks, and residents have had to flee there. Down in Ecuador, in the Galapagos Islands, one of their big volcanoes called Colossus has erupted as well, and 250 people had to be evacuated from communities in the immediate vicinity of the volcano. And all tourist activity has been halted in the area, at least for the time being. Even more troublesome is that there is increased eruption activity at Anak Krakatau in Indonesia. Now, Anak Krakatau translates as the child of Krakatau, Krakatau being Krakatoa, which really blew up at one point. Ash and dust went literally all over the world, produced a huge tidal wave. Boats were literally flushed miles inland, and the mountain just simply vanished. But there's been a growing volcano on the same spot, which they called the Child of Krakatau. That is showing increased activity. And Bali has had to divert air traffic because of Mount Agung. And the Regional Volcanic Ash Advisory Center in Darwin, Australia said winds could carry the ash southwest toward Bali's international airport and Java, Indonesia's most densely populated island. So it's all rocking and rolling. And then up in Alaska, there is concern that the Cleveland volcano is about to erupt. Now, despite all this, despite all the news, experts at the U.S. Geological Survey are saying there is actually no overall increase in Earth's volcanic activity. It's just, sometimes it clumps together, but they're not seeing that anything really dramatic and spectacular is about to happen. I think they're trying to reassure everybody to just stay put. Certainly, areas that have volcanoes, the tourism does suffer, and our tourism here in Hawaii has suffered as well. And I thought it would have gone the other way. I thought people would fly down to the Big Island, into Hilo, and they would take a licensed, chartered, regulated tour operator, either a boat or a helicopter, and go on out and see the eruption. If I had the money, I'd love to do that myself, take along the cameras and take some pictures. But apparently it has gone the other way, and Hawaii's Tourism Authority is still out there trying to remind everybody that in between the part that had the record-setting floods and the part that is melting, there's a lot left of Hawaii that's worth seeing. Now, getting on out into space, one of Saturn's moons is called Enceladus. And scientists have been combing through the data from the Cassini spacecraft. And they discovered the icy jets on Saturn's moons contain all the basic ingredients required to support life. Now, this alien seawater, which blows from the moon's geysers, were known to contain a range of interesting ingredients, including salt, silica, and simple carbon compounds. However, the latest research has revealed that large carbon-rich molecules are also blasting out from cracks in the moon's icy surface. All the chemicals are there. We'll be right back after these few words.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, 2, keep it today.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield Tactical Bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
35 million people in the United States suffer with debilitating migraines. If you or a loved one are one of them, you need to know about MiGrelief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist that formulated and patented the MyRelief Migraine Formula. MyRelief is a non-prescription dietary supplement recommended by neurologists, pharmacists, and pediatricians to address nutritional deficiencies in both adults and children over 2 with migraines. Try MyRelief for 3 months and see the powerful difference it can make in your life, or get your money back, no questions asked. Go to MIG911.com or call 800-MIG-7354. You can change your life today.
So if you suffer from migraines, don't wait. Call 800-MIG-7354. That's 800-MIG-7354 or visit MIG911.com.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far $5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Last segment of our program on this Monday. And as you know, we're getting into the time of the year when we get some spectacular weather. Over in Japan, they've had unprecedented rain, 81 people killed, and the Prime Minister is saying that it's a race against time to save people. So far, 1.5 million people have been forced to leave their homes, with another 3 million more advised to do so or face the consequences brought by the flooding. And we're seeing the formation of, it's the start of hurricane season. We have nothing here in the Pacific, thank goodness, but there have been some storms forming over the Atlantic. They're getting some major storms in Nevada. They're calling it the start of monsoon season. And apparently it's also blown through Phoenix, thousands of people losing power. So Mother Nature is once again reminding us that she is ultimately the boss. So now that the United States and the space station are shifting to commercial crew vehicles like SpaceX, where does that leave Russia? Because Russia has been, making a fair piece of money, flying crew and supplies to the space station. Well, they're not needed anymore, but I'm sure they'll find other customers for their services. Now, as you know, there's been this major dust storm all over Mars, and they do get really bad up there. It's been a little over 3 weeks since the Opportunity rover phoned home. That's because, unlike Curiosity, Opportunity is powered by solar cells. And with the sky basically obliterated with dust, the batteries have run down. Now, NASA is saying that it goes into an emergency mode of just shutting everything down except for a little timer. And that timer just runs for a while, and then it wakes up briefly to see if it's getting power from the solar cells. And if it doesn't, it goes back to sleep and starts the cycle all over again. If it does start getting power, then it starts recharging and bringing itself back to life. So NASA is hoping that rover will wake up, and I hope so too. I've been at those consoles. I know how those people feel about their missions. It's more than just a job and a paycheck. And so I wish them well. I hope they get their ship back up and running. Over in Japan, not quite so good. Apparently back on June 30th, a private Japanese rocket crashed into Earth just seconds after launch. And looking at the video, it looked to me like the engine basically failed. And was burning the fuel and was coming on out, but wasn't able to produce any thrust. And it was flying for a total of 10 seconds. It's not an easy thing to build a good working rocket. And I say that as somebody who grew up in the age where model rocketry, you built them all yourself. This was the days before Estes and prefabricated kits. All right, there's the music. Time for me to get on out of here. I got to do the Jim Goddard Show and then do some errands. Stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got a lot of interesting things to share with you. Please take what you learn here and at my website and share it with everyone that you know. We need to get the word out We're in this insane conflict between conservatives and liberals, globalists and nationalists, and we can't give up. So please support Republic Broadcasting. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.